Are either one of these any good?
Wow, this is a good movie.
It's pretty good.
Well, the director from yesterday doesn't think so.
It stinks.
He's sorry. You waste our film. It's so bad.
Hi, welcome to the Screening Room Podcast. I'm Hope Madden.
And I'm George Wolf, and we are from MaddWolf.com, MaddWolf.com. And we're trying this again. We've been threatening now for a while to go video, and it hasn't worked out. But fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. We're going to make this work, and glad to do it. Every week talking about the new releases, both in theaters and for streaming that we checked out. And we got some good ones this week. Mm-hmm. I'm going to start out with one that I think we've been waiting on for a while, really from a filmmaker that we're always now excited to hear from. And this is the latest from Osgood Perkins called The Monkey.
For the longest time, there was nothing. But then it appeared. A beast not from this earth, smiting the ones who deserved it, the ones who didn't. And everyone in between. Whoever controls it controls life and death. And those deaths are really fucked up.
I think if it wasn't for the music in that trailer, you wouldn't know it was a comedy. But
I know.
It's actually very funny in a dark kind of way. And yeah, Osgood Perkins has really come up with some winners here in his career. I mean, going back to The Blackcoat's Daughter, right? Gretel and Hansel.
Oh yeah.
And then we saw Longlegs just a few months ago.
And this one is, I think, really different than those. Although we love those. We're huge fans of this.
Yeah.
But you said in the written review, George, his other films are so there's like a dreamy quality to those that this one doesn't have. And this one, like you said, it has such a streak of macabre humor through it.
Yeah, it really does. It's almost silly, but incredibly dry, stone-faced, deadpan humor about it, but it really works, and it's an adaptation from a Stephen King short story. We have not read it, but talking to a couple of people that have, of course, they really have to punch it up to get a short story to feature length for a film. But nothing to us felt like filler.
No, and it's not
a really fun. It's a really fun ride.
Yeah, it's not a particularly long movie. It's not like they drag anything out. And it has the lead performances as a child is played by Christian Convery, and then as an adult by Theo James, who plays both twin brothers. And their performances are so low key. They're so like almost deadpan, but it's balanced by the crazy behavior of these really bold characters that surround him. And I think that, and also the music, you heard part of the score in the trailer, does give the whole movie a kind of a circus sort of quality to it.
Very much so.
It's unsettling. It's fun. And then, but it's so bloody.
Oh my Lord. It's so bloody and gory. Just bursts of blood. But yeah, going back, it's based around these two young boys. They're twins. In a dysfunctional, I'll say, family in the 90s, and they sort of inherit this organ grinder monkey. I don't want to call it a toy because the film lets you know what happens if you do. It's not good.
No.
They sort of inherit this in their dad's knickknacks handed down, and then they start sort of suspecting that people die when this monkey drums his drum. And gets wound up and drums his drum. And so as their kids, they think that they've maybe gotten rid of it until 25 years later, they find out they have not. And Theo James plays the twins, one of them with a glorious mullet as they in adulthood. And then they have to deal with the monkey all over again.
And, as is the case, I think, with any kind of really good horror, there are emotional underpinnings. The movie's really about about childhood trauma, about absentee fathers, about sibling rivalry, and there is something, it's funny, the movie is so weird, but that, the fact, I think, that they hang it on kind of these universal themes, and they play out well, it helps the movie just not feel just like a silly waste of time.
Yeah. Yeah. And the kills can happen just so suddenly, but it isn't long before you catch on to the fact that it's a bit of a Final Destination feel. Like you can feel them coming. And
very Rube Goldberg.
There's going to be some sort of Rube Goldberg contraption that ends up in a grisly death. And it's fun to sort of that seems a weird word to say, but it's fun to sort of anticipate those. Oh, what's going to happen here? To result in these just grisly deaths. Yeah, it gets so, you use the word viscous, which is a great word to use for this, just bloody and pulpy and gory, but at the same time, this tone, this circusy, silly tone, as we're doing all this deadpan dark humor. I just thought it was really, really fun the way it worked out.
Agreed. And I just want to point out that I've got my shirt on. I got my monkey shirt. That's right. Watching you, George.
Yeah, this is great. A great departure in tone, like you said, for Osgood Perkins, because we're big fans of his stuff. And I know Long Legs was a bit polarizing, I think, for some horror fans, but all in all, I thought it was a recommendation from us. But then boom, just a few months later, he comes back with this from some source material that he did not write. Right. And I'm very curious. Maybe some Stephen King fans can tell us if there was a hint of that sort of humor in the story, because boy, that's what really propelled it for me. Just this sort of we know we're bone dry delivery here, but man, underneath it is some really fun and funny stuff. And I think for fans of horror comedy, and we are obviously, we made one, of course, streaming now. This one is it's really a good one. It is really a good one. And you mentioned it's not very long.
Yeah.
So you're in and out, and they don't waste time getting down to business either.
No, they do not. Would you like to see some entrails? There you go.
So yeah, and the performances by the two kids are really good.
Well, the one kid.
That's right.
That's how good he is.
But they do a good job becoming different characters. And the kid does, because you mentioned sibling rivalry, and there's a lot of that. The older one is a bit of a bully.
The bigger one.
He reminds him that he's 4 minutes older or something like that.
He's 3 minutes older. And it's funny because I am 3 minutes older than my twin and much bigger as well. So I didn't mean to, but I sort of bonded with the bully of the two. Christian Convery is the actor who plays them as a little kid. And if you remember, he was the delightful hillbilly kid from Cocaine Bear.
Oh,
so he's already one of my favorites.
That's another fun ride. So if you want some bloody horror comedies, there you go.
That's right.
But and Theo James does a good job making those distinct characters, helped by that mullet.
Yes.
When they're adults. But yeah, this is fun. Just know that it is bloody. And if you don't like that, probably avoid it. But don't call it a toy, but go in and check out the monkey. We liked it, and that one is in theaters now. Looking ahead to the next film, and this is also in theaters. And this one is called The Unbreakable Boy.
Jester is the best one. It's the Mountain Dew Code Red of hats. The colors, the way it moves and jiggles, and the chicks dig it.
This is another based on true events, inspirational. I think it could be probably filed in the aisle of faith-based, but not overtly so, I guess.
Right. This is by director John Gunn, whose filmography up to now has been faith-based until he made Invisible Angels, right, with Hilary Swank a couple of years ago.
Ordinary Angels.
Thank you. Ordinary Angels.
Yeah, and that was definitely decent. Yeah.
Yeah. Inspirational true stories, I think, is and which to me is a lot more palatable than just being preached to for 90 minutes. And this stars Zachary Levi as a father of a boy who's entering middle school, Austin. And he not only has brittle bone disease, but he also is on the spectrum. And, and then there's the additional worry of moving into middle school. Are kids going to be mean to him? And is he going to break more bones? And so with the weight of all of that, there are other fractures within the family that start to sort of show themselves. And Levi, he's such a likable actor. He's such a good guy, and that really elevates a lot of scenes. He's very easy to root for as the dad, as Scott. It gets a little bit more problematic when he is tasked with the more emotionally weighty scenes. He struggles more with that. And he's easily the biggest name in the film, although the other actors around him don't have that problem. They're actually, all of them, I thought, really very solid, but especially Jacob Laval, who plays Ozman, who is, the whole point of the movie is that this little boy cannot be stopped. He's just, ebullient. He's just effervescent. And that's exactly what this kid is. This actor is. He's such a treasure. And every time he's on screen, you're just delighted. You miss him when he's not there, which is another sort of problem with the movie, is that the focus meanders. We spend maybe too much time worrying about what all of the other characters are doing at any moment in time. And it leaves it feeling a little untidy, a little all over the place, and yet still a little predictable. I mean, from the beginning where it's going. And it's not a great movie, but it's not a bad movie. And, especially because of Laval's performance, for me, it's a recommendation.
Yeah. And I think what elevates this and what elevated Ordinary Angels and some of the others, quote unquote, faith-based movies, as we've said many times in this podcast, it's not that we're against faith-based movies. It's just that so often they're so blatant about taking their audience for granted. Mm-hmm. Because we're faith-based, we know you're going to watch this. We don't have to really try that hard to do the things that go into making a successful story, a successful narrative, and they appear lazy. Movies like this and some others that rise above it don't feel that way.
Yeah, very often you can see it just in the production values of some of the films. And that's not the case here. I mean, the movie looks good. It was very competently put together. It is a little too predictable. It's not a great movie. It's certainly sentimental and a little schmaltzy, as you might think. But it's more than that, too. So I did not expect to like it, and I did.
It reminded me a little bit, just a couple of years ago, there was a movie called Ezra. With Robert De Niro and then Bobby Cannavale. He was he was a comic with an autistic. That movie now, I just found out, and looking back on IMDb, that movie now is called Standing Up. Oh, I don't know when they changed it. When we reviewed it, it was called Ezra, but it reminded me a little bit of that. But yeah, it's a recommendation, not great, but a recommendation, sweet and inspirational, based on a true event story, and that's in theaters now, called The Unbreakable Boy. Mm-hmm. Going ahead to the next one in theaters, it's the latest spin-off of the tried and true Die Hard idea. Nothing wrong with that. It's called Cleaner.
We're hearing reports of an incident at the Agnian Tower.
"999, what's your emergency?"
Are you kidding me?
Greedy, needy, cocky. We're going to shine a light on your crimes. Cheers.
Yes, if you've listened to this podcast, Die Hard is my all-time favorite movie. And when done right, it's still a good premise. It's fun. And here you've got a high-rise building, and you've got a party happening at that high-rise building. It's not Nakatomi Tower, and it's not Christmas Eve, but an energy group is having their annual gala there. And there's an environmental group of activists who plan to hijack that party and show the world proof of the corruption that this company has been doing for years and years and years. And that group is led by Clive Owen. And Clive Owen has a surprise as well, because his number 2 in charge decides to hijack the hijacking, and he has much more violent plans in store than Clive did. So then it becomes very dangerous. So on the outside of the glass, though, in this high rise, you've got Joey Locke, an ex-soldier who was kicked out of the military for some insubordination problems, played by Daisy Ridley. and she's struggling to hold on to this job as a cleaner and make sure that her autistic brother is cared for. So she finds herself on the outside of the glass, high up there as this hijacking is going on. And her brother is inside the building. So that's her first motivation, is to get in there and save him. And then once she's in the building, her instincts for kicking butt with authority just kick in, and she's might as well take down the bad guys while we're here. So this is director Martin Campbell, veteran director, many films, a couple of Bond films, as I said, you saw there in the trailer, GoldenEye, Casino Royale, some films with Liam Neeson. Very capable, and he's very capable here too. Just crafts it. They know that that you've seen this blueprint before. But Daisy Ridley, always great. She seems to be really relishing the chance to get physical. She's not a large person, but they make her physicality and her fighting seem authentic enough, to not have to suspend too much disbelief. And there's at least one or two set pieces with action outside, the glass high up there. And that's, especially if you have something with heights, you're like, oh boy, that's extra dangerous. So it's not great by any means, but it's satisfying. It actually surprised me a little bit that this is in theaters. This sort of seemed to me like one that'd be perfect for streaming. Yeah. You don't have to pay that much attention to it. You know the blueprint here. You know who the bad guys are. You know who the good guy is, and it's easy to follow that way if it was streaming. But it's in theaters, and that's great. Always love a theater experience, and in the end, it's satisfying. I think mainly for Daisy Ridley, and I will say the screenwriters. It's a team of 3 screenwriters, I think. They do manage to throw a surprise or two our way, even while they're following this blueprint. There's a surprise or two in store. So yeah, much like you said about the Unbreakable Boy, a recommendation, not great, but a recommendation if you like the action films, and that's Cleaner, and that one is also in theaters starting this weekend. So let's move to VOD for the next film, and this one is one starring one of our favorites. This is called Old Guy.
I really need to get back to work.
What do you do?
Oh, here we go.
Belinsky. He made a terrible mess. Didn't even get the guy.
We can avoid these problems.
We're going younger across the board. I've got something I think you might like.
Back in the field?
In a different capacity.
Hey man, what's up?
You forgot the vodka.
Alcohol is actually really bad for you.
Probably.
Christoph Waltz.
Yeah, Christoph Waltz. In kind of a, what is it that Select Jerry would say? A geezer teaser?
Geezer teaser. Yeah.
Yeah, where you take an actor who's, getting up there and you put him in this action film. Although usually I think in those films, the actor isn't in it for very long. Whereas
that's hence the teaser. Yeah.
Yes, Christoph Waltz is the main guy, and he is getting up there in age. He's a hitman. He's one of the greatest hitmen of all time, but he's got this problem with arthritis, and so he just had surgery, but it still really hurts to pull a trigger, and so he's just. But as you saw in the trailer, the organization has decided to go younger across the board. So instead of giving him the next hit, they have given him the mission to train the next field agent, who is played by Cooper Hoffman, who was so great in Licorice Pizza, right? Philip Seymour Hoffman's son. But he's decided that's not really what he's going to do. He's just going to drag the kid with him, and he's going to take care of business. And then the kid is going to tell the organization that he's the greatest hitman he's ever seen, and he's going to get his old job back. And for some reason, he's also going to bring Lucy Liu along because, he's going to have some fun while he's at it. And it's a predictable film. It's a very predictable film that benefits from wild miscasting. Like all 3 of these, you're like, what, like Cooper Hoffman's character is this, my body is a temple, right? He doesn't drink. He doesn't eat anything that's bad for him. He does push-ups in one scene. And you're like, what? And he's really, really talented though. And so the fact that he feels like a wild card in this particular role is fun, and Lucy Liu as well. She does a very nice job of giving us a character that we can root for. There is no reason in the world this character is in this film. Absolutely none. She serves no purpose at all. And then, of course, Christoph Waltz, always great. And one of the things that he does is takes mundane moments in a script and turns them into these incandescent moments of acting. And that's the reason to watch this movie, is to look out for a handful of those, especially one with a little girl who needs a glass of water. The writing, this is from director Simon West, who's also made some big films. And this is, it feels very low rung for him. It feels very not like such a much of a movie. And I think part of it is the writing. You know, it's supposed to be clever in the way that these sort of backdoor dealings are going on. But the fact is there are these massive leaps of logic in these gaping plot holes, so that the story really doesn't hold together particularly well at all. But it's fun to watch anyway, because Christoph Waltz is just really, really fun. This is a streamer. And then it's not one that I would recommend in theaters, but yeah, just sort of click it on late at night and watch for a while. It's fun. It's not a good movie, but it's fun.
Good enough. And that's Old Guy streaming
right.
now. Also streaming, let's move to Shudder. Always love Shudder. And one of their latest is called Little Bites.
Do you believe in God?
I think you must. Because you believe in me.
I love you, baby. I love you too, Mom. What's that? Dinner bell.
I bet you're a wonderful mother.
This is weird. So this is directed by Rob Zombie's youngest brother, who goes by Spider-One, who also wrote the story. And it's an interesting idea for a story. And it's set in the 70s, and everything is so heavily patterned, all the clothing and all of the upholstery and all of the wallpaper, that you're like, oh yeah, that's definitely the 70s. and a young woman, a widow, she has sent her 10-year-old daughter away, we know, because of a phone call early on, because she's got this problem at home she's got to iron out. And the problem is that there's a demon man who lives down her basement, and he rings the dinner bell, and she goes and lets him bite off a part of her, which seems like a pretty big problem to have. It winds up being in very much the way that Babadook was. It's a metaphor for sort of single parenting and grief and, that kind of a trauma, believing you can't do it on your own, and not really appreciating what you have in front of you. It's all of that the Babadook did so miraculously well. And this one really struggles in a handful of ways. One is that it's not that well directed. Every scene goes on so awkwardly long that you sort of feel the actors not knowing what else to be doing as they're still standing there with the cameras rolling. It's really uncomfortable. And also the lead, who's Kirsty Fox, plays the mother. She's the weakest link. She has the most trouble with her performances. There are a lot of solid veterans around her. Barbara Crampton. I know how you love Crampton. Heather Langenkamp. And then the guy who plays the demon, John Sklarov, great. The demon is really great. He's got this very droll, sort of weary sense of humor, and he's really good. There's a lot about it that is good, but it just, because each scene drags on for so long, it just loses you. So that's unfortunate, because I'm tempted, but I don't want to watch it again. Like if it had another pass with a good edit, I think I might want to watch it again, but I don't think I can recommend it, because
no. Have I missed other films from Spider-One? I didn't know that Rob Zombie's brother had made any movies, or is this the debut?
He has directed 12 films.
Oh,
yeah. Although, yeah, Allegoria, Barry, The Bride, there, and most of them are shorts, but those, Allegoria, Barry, The Bride, and Little Bites are his features, and they have a lot of the same players, a lot of the same cast in them, but this is the first one I've seen.
Okay. So not really a recommendation.
No, I mean, it's not terrible, but no, I probably would not give it a big thumbs up. No.
Yeah. But still, if you're a horror fan and you don't have Shudder, what are you doing?
That's right. Get it right now.
And you know what? You reminded me of something when you mentioned that he had done a lot of short films. Yeah. In limited release this week, the Oscar-nominated short films. Now, if you don't know what they do with this, they started this a few years ago, and I think it's genius. I think it's great because they package all the Oscar-nominated short films in 3 different programs. You've got the live action, you've got the animated, and the documentary shorts, and they put them all together in feature length. Now, if it happens that the run times don't add up to feature length, then they throw in some extra really good shorts to make up for it. But it's always just a treat because it gives you a chance to see these just great short films on the big screen. Cannot recommend it enough. They're not wide release, but if they're in your area, it's a chance to see the Oscar-nominated short films, and that's they start rolling out on the big screens this weekend. So we always recommend those.
As you said before, when we talked about this before, when you're a kid and you're watching the Oscars and you see these win, you're like, where can I see these? You know,
Right.
for the longest time you really couldn't. So it's a great program.
Yeah, and so that's in select theaters this weekend. Check them out if you can. Back to streamers this week for the latest drama from Ed Burns. This one's called Millers in Marriage.
Everyone has that story of their first tiny New York apartment.
The cockroaches and the mice.
Oh my God, and the rat.
I went with Nick to get the trap. He can take that. The moral of the story is sometimes it's better to live with a rat.
I think this is Ed Burns' 13th or 14th feature.
Wow.
Yeah, and he at least judging by this film, he doesn't have a lot of faith in happy marriages, I'll tell you. But it's pretty well done. I mean, it's very talky. His films tend to be that way. You could easily see this one being maybe a play, but it's based around the Miller siblings. You've got Ed Burns, and he's just somewhat recently gotten out of a 15-year marriage to Morena Baccarin, known mainly probably from Deadpool.
Mm-hmm.
And he has now started dating Minnie Driver. But his ex-wife now is back on the scene. Maybe she made a mistake. Maybe she didn't want to break up because it was her idea for the divorce. So causing problems there. Then he's got 2 sisters. One of them played by Juliana Margulies, and she is a writer, and she is married to Campbell Scott, who's also a writer, but he doesn't write much. He's a lot slower than she is, and he clearly feels intimidated by that, resents that a little bit, trying to be supportive of her work while still getting in those little barbs. And so that creates some friction in their marriage while she's thinking of maybe straying from the marriage, and maybe she already has. And then they have another sibling played by Gretchen Mol, who's very good. She's probably the standout performance in this movie. And she plays a musician, sort of an ex-musician. She was in a band in the 90s, had one big hit, and then that was it. And she ended up marrying her manager back in the day, played by Patrick Wilson. And they all are still married, but he is a drunk and a just complete a-hole. From the word go. And that's one of the characters that doesn't have a lot of depth because that's all he is. He's in and out because he still manages bands. He's on the road. So he's on the road, then he comes back into town. He's just nothing but a drunk a-hole the entire time. And because of this, she's thinking of maybe straying from the marriage with a music writer played by Benjamin Bratt, who's writing a story about 90s bands and wants to do something about her band and maybe a little more. So you've got all this stuff going on, a lot of characters, a lot of cross interactions with the characters, and just nobody's happy in their marriage. I'll tell you that. But even though it does sometimes seem a little too forced, a little, too shallow with some of these characters, there are real moments of insight here, and he gives Ed Burns gives most, if not all, of the actors at least one scene to shine, to really show off a little bit. And it is a good cast. You can tell by some of the names I dropped there. It's a good cast. Some of the writing is quite insightful about people reaching a certain age and a certain point in their lives and taking stock. Where have I been? What have I done? How much time do I have left? So yeah, there's insight. I would recommend it. It's just a little bit in some moments some sequences with some characters just not as deep as it maybe could have been. But it reminds you, Ed Burns kind of goes away for a while and then he comes back, but he's definitely got some talent. This is a little talky, but it's worth it if you like the dramas, mature dramas, let's put it that way. And that is streaming now. It is called Millers in Marriage. As we go to, is this one in theater? Yeah, it is in theaters. This is one of our favorite, I don't want to call her that girl, but always propping up whatever film she's in. Michaela Watkins, and she gets a lead in a film called Suze.
Proud of you. You're my everything.
Morning, Suze.
Please don't call me Suze.
Sorry, Suze.
Get what you see in this guy.
I love him and he worships me.
But honey, you're starting university. He's starting nothing.
Happy grad, everyone. We're the emotional morons.
Baby, I'm gonna miss you so hard.
Wait, what? It's
Take
your
it.
favorite.
I love you so much, sweetie.
Do you feel like you're gonna throw up too, Suze?
She's so great.
She is
so great. And this was reviewed for us at MaddWolf by Brandon Thomas, who just thought exactly that. And you can tell from the trailer, essentially what's going to happen. Suze winds up actually having a kind of a relationship with the jilted boyfriend who stays home, kind of a mother-son kind of relationship. Let's not get nutty. And they both grow and learn, and it's very charming. And pretty predictable, but just elevated in every scene by Michaela Watkins, who is essentially in every scene. I mean, she carries the movie, but she's just so talented. Her comedic timing is so on point, but also she's able to mine scenes for something that is emotionally honest and relevant. And it gives the film enough depth for it to be very satisfying.
Yeah, she has been around for years just as a stellar supporting player. Small roles, or maybe some major supporting roles. I'm thinking of, remember the movie from a few years ago, in a World, Lake Bell? Yeah, where Lake Bell was a voiceover artist and Michaela played her sister. She was great.
Yeah.
Films like that, just coming in and just really shining as a supporting player. I love the fact that she's getting a lead here. And I can definitely see it's what we've talked about. I think this same theme in a couple of movies this week, so, elevated by good performers with good performances.
Right.
Yeah. And Suze, you can find the full review from Brandon Thomas at MaddWolf.com. But yeah, she is always a treat. Hope she gets more leads. And that's in theaters, select theaters, called Suze. Okay, we're going back to VOD for a heist movie. I'm in.
Casper?
Yeah.
I need someone I can trust.
I don't do trucks anymore.
It's something else. Big money.
How many times have we said that? Heist movie. Like them. Something about it. And Matt Weiner reviewed this for us at MaddWolf.com. And that's basically what he said. This is a heist movie. Occasionally, it tries to do something else, a little social commentary here and there. But at the heart, it's a heist movie. And for that, it does it well.
Yeah, he said, especially, right from the opening sequence, the film sets a tone that's just very gripping. And as long as it doesn't sort of veer away from that, you're at the edge of your seat in this whole film.
Yeah, and it's based, I guess it's based on the largest heist ever in Denmark. So it's based on a true event. And yeah, I mean, he Matt Weiner compared the tone to like a Michael Mann. So that's a good tone.
Yes,
that's
it
a good
is.
tone to have.
Good place to be.
Yeah, it's a good place to be if you're doing like a thriller or a heist movie. But when it stays to being a heist movie, it gets it right. So that's one to check out. It's called The Quiet Ones on VOD. Let's go to another horror movie. We love that. And this one is on VOD as well. And it's called Everyone is Going to Die.
There's someone in the garden.
Imogen, stay here. Friend of yours?
Hello. We're here for the party. And look, we brought presents.
Why are you here?
What we do is organise days that you'll never forget.
Ooh.
Yes. I know that's a trailer. I'm like, oh, I'm in. And this was reviewed for us at MaddWolf.com by Brooklyn Ewing, who is a filmmaker and a cinematographer, and she does a lot of horror. And she really admired the way the film was made, the look of it. The performances were great. It was tough. It was a tough outright recommendation for a couple of reasons. It's very, very grim. And she thought it evoked sort of the French extreme of the early 2000s or something like Funny Games, Michael Haneke Funny Games.
Mm-hmm.
So you should know that going in, because a lot of people, they like a horror that's a little bit fun, in which case go see The Monkey. But if you really like a horror movie, this might be the one for you. It's a father who is kind of trying to reconnect with his teenage daughter by having this birthday party. And then, as you saw from the trailer, masked invaders kind of take over the party. And it's very twisty. There are a lot of surprises. Brooklyn was careful not to give any away, but there is one thing to keep in mind. It's a well-made movie and a recommendation. However, some of the more violent moments are going to be polarizing, partly because they are triggers and partly because the film is written and directed by a man. And there are moments when you consider that where you think, I don't know that image was necessary. I don't know that moment was necessary.
Mm-hmm.
And that it might have just been done because a man made this movie, and it's probably more titillating than it ought to be. So keep that in mind going into it. It is a very grim horror film, but if that's your bag, it's very well made.
It's interesting. The movie, the title is
Mhm.
called "Everyone Is Going to Die," which is kind of a theme of The Monkey.
It is.
Because
Everybody dies.
Everybody dies, and that's just the monkeys. Oh, what are you gonna do? You turn the switch there, you wind it up, and somebody's gonna die. But hey, aren't we all?
Everybody dies.
But yeah, this one not so fun. Yeah, you mentioned
no.
Funny Games, something like Speak No Evil,
Right,
something that rough. So know that going in. But like you said, if you can gravitate toward that, this one does it well. And you can read Brooklyn's full review at MaddWolf.com for Everyone Is Going to Die, and that's on VOD. And one more, bringing up the rear in more ways than one. This is also on VOD, and this one's called 3 Birthdays.
See the love in the morning, baby. See the love in the morning.
Something happened.
Maybe it's a good thing.
I don't think so.
I love you, Dave.
You have to stop. See the love in the morning, baby. See the love in the morning.
I think our open relationship is bad for us.
No kidding.
This was reviewed for us at MaddWolf.com by Adam Barney, and he was not impressed.
No, disappointed in it. It's set in the 1970s on a campus in Ohio. And it covers 3 different birthdays, but it's the daughter is about to turn 18, and she's trying to figure out how to lose her virginity. Meanwhile, her parents are in an open relationship, and the whole thing is just kind of creeping her out and freaking her out. And the film suffers a little bit because while it spends a lot of time with each character, you don't like anybody. You dislike everybody. And in particular, Josh Radnor, who plays the father, he's really hard. You just really root against him, although that's not necessarily what the film is asking you to do. And then in the end, it winds up sort of timing out in a way with a historical event that makes the whole film feel very cloying and preachy and disappointing. So that was kind of the big disappointment for the week.
Adam reminded anyone in his written review, he reminded anyone who had seen the movie Remember Me years ago with Robert Pattinson, that the ending is on par with that. And that is still have an ending just makes you mad for having gone there. If you know, you know. We're not going to spoil it because it'll spoil 2 movies in one by telling you that. But that was just the capper for Adam. Not a fan of that movie at all. And you can read his full review at MaddWolf.com. But on VOD, right now, 3 Birthdays, not a recommendation there. So as this being our first go-round with the video, we're not joined by the Schlocketeer this week, but we hope to have him starting next week if all goes well. Have him join the video party here with the studio news and notes. But looking ahead to next week at the movies, we've got one. Well, I know I'm looking forward to this. I love that true life thriller stuff, true life adventure stuff. One called Last Breath is out next week.
Another one with a great cast called Riff Raff.
Ooh, a movie that we have seen by our buddy Joe Swanberg. Love that this is getting a release. His latest, Invader, is out next week.
And another one that has an intriguing premise called My Dead Friend Zoe.
I have heard about that. Natalie Morales is one of the people in there. I'm always a fan of hers, both as an actress and a filmmaker. Also, Trigger Happy is out next week.
And another horror film called The Build Out.
Okay. We'll talk about those next week and hopefully joined by the Schlocketeer. But until then, what do you think? What's good? What
are we going to have our Oscar picks, you think, next week, George?
We just realized, I think yesterday, that next week is Oscar time. I mean, what?
How does this keep surprising us?
I don't know. I don't know. But yes, we'll have to do that. And I think off the top of my head, some of them might be a little tough.
Yeah.
Tough this year, but we'll see. So we'll talk about that next week as well. But in the meantime, if you want to talk about any of the movies that we've discussed this week, we love to keep the conversation going about the monkey. What was your favorite kill? Let's talk about that. Keep the conversation going anytime. You can find us easily on all the socials at MaddWolf Columbus, and the main website is MaddWolf.com. So enjoy the movies. We will talk next week. And until then, she is Hope Madden.
Is George Wolf.
And this is the Screening Room Podcast.
See ya.
I do wish we could chat longer, but I'm having an old friend for dinner. Bye.